this is a very quick cosmos hack that I did quite by chance, really. It was an impulsive sort of go at experiment, really. I quite often experiment with gardening, which I hopefully will have lots of results to bring to you through the course of growing this YouTube channel. So what happened was I was growing my cosmos under lights indoors on a warm mat, which I don't like to do really, but they actually did quite well, the cosmos. They actually did so well and grew so big that I had to then pot them up and think about moving them outside because I was running out of space. I only have a very small space inside for growing things under lights. So I potted them up and I kept them on a window ledge, a sunny window ledge in this case, until the weather, until the danger of frost was past, and started hardening them off outside. And I thought to myself, I was looking at them and I was thinking, they're really leggy, which is obviously one of the problems of growing things indoors under lights before they're really ready to grow naturally outside. And so I thought, well, I don't need them to flower yet. They're not going to flower for a while yet. So it doesn't really matter if I pinch out the tips and they slow down a bit. I'll just do that. And then they'll bush out and I'll have more flowers. And you can see here, they have bushed out, and you can see where I did pinch out that central stem just there. I'm showing you now. And then you've got this sort of bushing out at the node where I cut them. So I was pinching out the tips, and of course they were just withering away, these tips. And I was thinking, these are really long, bushy, healthy tips. It seems a bit of a waste to just be sort of discarding them. And then I thought, oh, why don't I try rooting things in a jar of water? I have done that before with rosemary. I've done it with roses. I've done it. Sage is really easy to root and turn into a new plant by plopping a cutting into a jar of water. So I thought, oh, I think I'm going to do that with these tips. So I sort of reduced the foliage a little bit to reduce transpiration, and I popped the remainder tips. Once I thought of it, I thought, I'm going to collect all these tips. I put them in a jar of water. Freshen the water every day, like you do, like you do when you're doing your ranunculus soaking. You don't want them to get stagnant and get into dirty water and get diseases. So I was freshening the water every day, and blow me down, within a week, they grew roots. So I did put them on a north-facing window ledge so they didn't get direct sunlight, which would have obviously put them under too much stress. So they were on a north-facing window, so they had plenty of light. They were indoors, so they didn't have the worst of the elements affecting them. They were sort of quite at an ambient room temperature, and they did not have direct sunlight, but they did have lots of light at this big window. And by now, we're sort of 2 or 3 weeks later, they've all grown roots. So I'm really pleased with that result, and I'm going to pot those up and probably keep them on this windowsill for a bit longer, and then I will put them out, start hardening them off outside. And so that will be the next stage of this sort of cosmos hack, and I'll bring you the results of that when it comes. And what I'll do is I will mark them as the pinched out tips that I grew, where I took the cuttings in water, and I will separate them from the cuttings that I grew from the cosmos that I grew from seed, so that we can see if there is any difference in those results, so that we'll know if it's worth doing again another time. But I thought that was a really handy tip to bring to you. I always think it's worth putting things in a jar of water. As I say, I have to say the roses that I grew that way were not fantastically strong. One is doing really well up the back of the fence. It was a climber, but they don't always do that well growing from cuttings. Rosemary does well from cuttings, and as I say, sage did well from cuttings. Buddleia also I've done from cuttings. Also, my blackberry bush I've done from cuttings this way. So there are lots of things you can do, and now I know you can do cosmos this way as well. So if you do have those long healthy tips and you don't really want to just throw them away, then plonk them in a jar of water on a north-facing windowsill indoors, and so that all they're doing is worrying about growing roots and not trying to survive, because you've made it so easy for them. and you will notice pretty quickly they will sprout. They start with little balls on their roots and little lumps, and those then grow into roots. It's incredible. So have a go at that. That's my Cosmos hack, and I hope that helped. If it did, please consider subscribing and liking and sharing and clicking the notification bell and all that jazz. And hopefully I'll be able to bring you my Bells of Ireland experiment soon, and then I'll tell you more about that and other things I've got in the garden. So hope you like that video. See you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.